Team Spyral or Team Subterror? Which side are you on? What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. Now, today I wanted to revisit my age-old argument of which is better, Spyral or Subterror. I made a video about this when we first got the initial wave of Spyral and Subterror support at the beginning of... I can't even remember how long it's been. I believe it was back in the Dark Illusion, perhaps? And this is really interesting to me because we actually today just got the last Subterror cards spoiled, and then we had the last Spyral cards released last week. So now this is it. This is the last support that this archetype, or both of these archetypes rather, are supposed to be receiving. So I think it's kind of interesting to kind of take a look back and revisit this argument and see just kind of how these archetypes have both affected the meta and where we think they're going to progress with this final new support. So to start off, how have both of these archetypes been doing? Well, Spyral's actually been seeing some success on the competitive meta. Not necessarily as a pure deck, although there have been some pure Spyral variants that have been actually making day 2s of YCSs and also potentially even topping regionals every once in a while as well. So that's something to take note of, but I'm primarily talking about how players have used the Spyral engine mostly to focus on it as using it, like I said, as an engine, not necessarily as the archetype the deck is centralized around. You're seeing decks, especially Zodiac variants more specifically, that are really focusing on using cards like Spyral Super Agent and the Spyral Resort, kind of just as a complementary engine to the Zodiacs for a couple different reasons. First off, your Spyral Super Agent is good not only because it's a free level 4 summon if you happen to call the top card of your opposing player's deck correctly, but it also is spell and trap removal if summoned properly in that way, which can be really good for kind of baiting things out like Solemn Strike, preemptively hitting Dimensional Barrier, or any of these other different things. But then you're also getting the added benefit of a free level 4 that you can then use for all of your extended Zodiac combos now that Zodiac Rapier is now at 2. Players have been trying to find a way to kind of best replace that other Rapier, and pretty much any way to get an additional level 4 on the board is essentially all that's needed to get the combo back to its prime when Rapier was at 3. So Spyral Super Agent kind of fills all the gaps, but then when you look beyond that, you're also getting the additional information of what the top card is of your opponent's deck. So assuming they don't shuffle their deck for any particular reason until their next turn, you're going to know what their draw is, and you're going to have that information, which can be really useful because, for instance, if you reveal something like a Raigeki, you know that you need to actually potentially play around a card like Raigeki going into your opponent's next turn. Then when you look at a card like Spyral Resort's really interesting as well because not only does it protect the Spyral Super Agent from being targeted by card effects, while that's a nice effect, that isn't really why the card is there. The card is there because it's extremely powerful in its ability to just recur monsters from the graveyard, and being able to add back those combo pieces can be critical, and essentially in a format where the resources are so cherished and so utilized just to each one of their own capabilities, you want to just make sure your resources are being stretched as much as possible and you're gaining as much value out of each one of those resources as you can. So being able to reobtain one of those resources that you've previously used is incredibly powerful. Now, Zodiac isn't the only variant that Spyral, and I guess the Spyral engine we'll call it, has been utilized in. Spyral's also been seeing play in 60 card variants of like Zombie Lightsworn as well, because you don't really care about milling stuff with grass, and it's like if you get the added benefit of just happening to get a Super Agent, it's just a bonus rank 4 for all the reasons I listed earlier. So it's kind of cool seeing that players are kind of just splashing this engine in, but the deck as a whole isn't really seeing a whole lot of play. Then you move on to Subterrors, which are seeing little to no competitive play whatsoever. The most play you might see of the current Subterror builds is maybe at a regional, but I mean, as far as I've seen, I've barely seen any Subterror builds even making like getting invites at regionals. Obviously, all those deck lists aren't posted. People primarily focus on top cut deck lists more so than not, but in terms of Subterrors, like, they're pretty much just non-existent in terms of the competitive scene. But now with the introduction of all of these new support cards, where are these going to really take the archetype? So a lot of people are really fawning over the new Subterror cards because the new Subterror cards are absolutely incredible. Starting with Subterror Fiendus. Fiendus is almost like another copy of Ghost Ash once Ghost Ash gets released, because the fact that it negates essentially any card effect that might be activated, and then on top of that you get to special summon a Subterror on top of that, it does so much for the archetype to kind of just help accelerate the deck's plays. The fact that you can negate stuff like Regeki, or really just any bad card that's troublesome for the deck, it's an automatic 3 of, and then you have Subterror Final Battle, which just got released today, and Subterror Final Battle, while being it's a trap card, has some of the most powerful effects of a Subterror card to date, and really kind of goes to just really help the archetype in a lot of different ways. The fact that you can flip a Subterror monster face up, the fact that you can make your Subterrors fucking gigantic by making their attack and defense equivalent to the combined values of their attack and defense, and also being able to prevent your activated Subterror effects from being negated, all in one trap card, and you get to pick and choose which effects you use. The fact that the card resets itself after activation, the fact that you can activate multiple of this trap if you happen to have multiples, it's just crazy. This trap does so much for the archetype, I can't even express really how much it does. The biggest flaw of this trap card, though, is that it's not searchable through something like the Hidden City, or really any of the main Subterror support, and I really feel that if this card were searchable, I think the Subterrors would actually pretty much be all there. But the fact that it's not searchable, I'm really doubting if the Subterrors now have the potential to really make it on the competitive scene. Definitely with Fiendus and this trap, they have a lot of potential because there's just so many different things the deck is now capable of doing, and capable of pretty much things that they couldn't do before, or it was like that one missing piece that the deck really needed, but now it has it. And the thing that worries me is we're going into a format of True Kings and True King Dinosaurs and True Draco, and Zodiac's still a looming threat as well. There's all these other decks that pretty much do all of these unfair things. That is the Subterror support going to be enough? And then you look at the Spyral support as well, and the Spyral support get this kind of crazy boss monster that again is kind of limited in its capabilities. It's okay, but it's not really like the greatest. They got the equip spell, which is, it's a pretty decent effect for an equip spell, but the thing is you have to actually connect with the attack in the battle phase, and it's an equip spell, which means that out of all of the removal that exists in the current format, you need to make sure that that equip spell essentially stays equipped to the monster. So what I think's gonna actually end up happening is that I think people are just gonna keep using the Spyral cards as an engine like they already have, to essentially just turbo out Spyral Super Agent, also to recur resources from their graveyard, just to get that level 4 extension to help possibly extend some of their plays. And the Subterrors are really the big unknown at this point. I remember back in my first video about this subject, I was all about Team Subterror because at the time, we got the first wave of Subterrors. We got Nemesis Warrior, we had Umastrix, we had Stalagmo, we had the Hidden City. These are the 4 best cards of the entire archetype, and we got them in the first set. But now I really question, even now with Fiendus and with Final Battle, does the archetype really have enough to get there? And that's something I really don't know the answer to, but I'd really love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments just about what exactly you guys think is the future for Subterrors, as well as Spirals. I might be completely wrong, and pure Spirals as a pure archetype might now be completely viable in terms of competitive relevance, but I'm still of the opinion that it's just purely going to be used as an engine, because it kind of suits a lot of decks very well as an engine and kind of filling slots that decks usually kind of need filling for. But guys, that's just my opinion. Hashtag Team Spyral for the time being, but who knows, maybe someone like DZ will just blow up Subterrors and make it like the best deck ever. If anyone's gonna do it, it's gonna be a dedicated player like him. But again, let me know down in the comments what you guys think about the battle of Team Spyral versus Team Subterror. Let me know which one is the team that you support. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and also be sure to back me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.